Welcome to the RJLT Economics. In this podcast, I want to discuss the caricaturization of Russia by the population in the West. I want to develop this podcast in two steps. First, I want to talk about basically what I have watched, a video that I have watched by some YouTuber from basically a general, some German who basically compared Russia and its national ideology to that of Germany in the 1930s. And then I wanted to talk about, of course, I want to analyze it, and I want to say, I want to discuss why there is this feeling, why it is that this person and people like him feel this way. And secondly, I want to also give my take on the proposition that this person made. Is Russia fascist? I think it is not, but I will discuss. Now, before I first want to say a couple of words about the audio of this recording, because as you may know, I posted, just as I mentioned in my previous video, I posted my microphone home, I think last Saturday, but my plane was on the 9th of November was cancelled, and I have to take another plane which will fly on the 16th of November. So I feel like I have a little bit more time, and so I'll just make a couple of recordings now and then, and I'm doing this now with my laptop, which is a very old unit from exactly 2010, so that's 12 years old. I guess the sound quality is really not very high, so I guess I have to apologize for that. And as I have very empty rooms, it's going to also sound very, very echoey. Anyway, let's get that. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's delve into the first point. What I have watched is a guy, a German guy. I'm not going to give the name of his channel, but just know that this guy came highly recommended by G, right? Because the Big Brother really loves this type of narrative. And the guy is highly popular, and if you read the comment section, you see that a lot of people have been enlightened by his analysis. And he made this video, roughly an hour-long video, outlining the three political thinkers that Vladimir Putin is most fond of and is most closely trying to copy their ideas from or leverage. One of them, I think it's perhaps the most popular one, is called Schmidt, which is perhaps the most famous National Socialist ideologue or theorist. Although I think my take is that I do not believe that the Austrian leader or the Austrian German leader, the leader, really needed some scholar to give credence to his ideology. Anyway, so the person made the argument that from Carl Schmitt, um, Putin learned to the use of law, or actually the misuse of law, to control power. And the guy also mentioned another fascist, is a Russian fascist, who came up with this idea that the Russian people are superior to the Western civilization. And he says that, that Putin really loves this guy, adores him. And I think from some evidence it seems that Putin personally does do that. All right? And thirdly, there is another communist. This guy is a communist theorist, and from the Soviet Union, of course. And basically, this guy tries, I think, to say that Vladimir Putin is mostly influenced by fascists, national socialists, and communists. And as a result, this guy is really messed up. He is purebred authoritarian, and he's a criminal, and he should be taken out. That's essentially his argument, and a lot of people have been enlightened by this. Now, I think there are some reasons that people from the West who like to believe this, and I think I've discussed some of these issues before. It is unsurprising for different cultural, historical, and even economic reasons. There are some incentives to belittle the Russian history and culture, while at the same time, I think it could be sometimes be a valid argument that I think it is a valid argument that the Russian culture is less refined. It is more. It has more rough edges. It lacks the historic roots that especially some of the southern European nations can trace back to. We're specifically talking about the Greek culture in the Eastern Mediterranean, and obviously the Latin culture from the Roman Empire. And those were great civilizations. So you could say that in that, even though the Russians claim they want to believe that they are the successor state to the Roman Empire, because they are the successor state to the Orthodox religion, and they want to believe, they want to, especially with the double-headed eagle, that they are the successor state to the Byzantine Empire. That's up to debate. I think most people in the West would not think that Russia is a continuation of the Roman Empire. And I think indeed this is a very, very far-fetched argument, that anyone who's making this type of argument I would consider a Russophile or a Russian nationalist who really likes to bend his history to suit a narrative. But nevertheless, I don't think that, I do believe that the Russians have created their own culture, they have their own ways of doing things. They are a civilized society, even though they may be less refined, and it could be rather corrupt, but then again, some of the very well-known early civilizations that are still somewhat alive today, the Italians, the Greeks, and also the Syrians, etc. Those are ancient civilizations. You can't say that they are not they don't have civilization, but they are just as corrupt, right? So that is something that I want to talk about in the first part of this podcast, and then let's move on to the second one, which is Russia a fascist state? I think it is not. Now, let's just take what this German guy said, right? Let's just take it at face value. Let's agree with him that maybe Vladimir Putin has indeed borrowed a lot of his ideology from Christian fascists, from National Socialists, and from communists. Maybe he has. And maybe you could say that he's would-be fascist. Maybe. But it is very clear that, in my mind at least, that the Russian people are not into fascism. The Russian people, they are not very proud people, I want to say. I don't think the Russian people are very proud people. They are not people mesmerized with themselves. They are not people, they are actually, I think the Russian people are very pragmatic people. I think they are very straightforward people. So even if at the top you had a fascist or would-be fascist leader, the population is not fascist, right? Just know that the National Socialist leader in the 1930s did not became the leader through a violent movement, but instead he was elected because he was fascist. Right? He was, so that meant that the population was to some extent, to a great extent, fascist. But this is not the case in Russia. I don't think that the Russians are a fascist people. This is one point that I want to make. Another point is that even the political structure in Russia, with its bureaucracy, with its how to say, corruption, it's not a tightly knit militaristic fascist regime. It is more like I think it's more like just a capitalist country in a not very well advanced economic and social state, with a lot of room to make in terms of rule of law, right? So I think that's my assessment of the Russian state. So even if Vladimir Putin is a big fascist, the country is not fascist, and you can't say this is the biggest problem I have with a lot of people in the West, is that they think that because Vladimir Putin is evil, Russia is evil. No, Vladimir Putin is just a single person, and he is not. I don't think he is the same leader as, you know, the Austrian German in the 1930s and 1940s. Now, he may prove to be in the future, but I don't think so. Especially considering his rather advanced age. He's 70 years old now. I don't think he will really be in charge for much longer. 5 years, 10 years, probably that will be it. And may even be less. So I don't think, even if he is such a horrible, demonic person, that is really going to change Russia, make Russia a fascist, cast Russia as a fascist state. And more importantly, as he goes, I don't think the Russian policy towards the West, towards Germany, would change. I don't see the Russian leadership, and I don't see the Russian people um, feel very differently feel about the West than what Vladimir Putin is. And I have to say that it's very likely that Vladimir Putin, rather than leading the popular opinion, is actually following the popular opinion, the public opinion in Russia. So that's that. And the last point I want to make is that, you know, a political leader is someone, in my mind, it's someone not just a pure reflection of the collective will of the public. I think to some extent a good political leader needs to have some ideology. He or she should not be completely obsessed, preoccupied by ideology. By the same time, if this person is purely just a technocrat with no vision for the country, I think what you have is Angela Merkel, who is perhaps rather good at solving or tackling issues and problems as they come, but who lacked a vision, a long-term plan, a strategy for the country, for the nation. And the person, this quote-unquote leader, is easily swayed by whatever media wave that is blowing, a media wind that is blowing within his or her country, and is easily manipulated by the course of public opinion, and actually via the course of public opinion by foreign or domestic interests. I think that is an assessment of Angela Merkel, and I think that certainly isn't an assessment of Vladimir Putin. So overall, on balance, I think Vladimir Putin is a very charismatic, competent, but not flawless leader. I can accept perhaps this guy is corrupt, perhaps this guy has done a lot of things that you don't want to know, I don't know, and perhaps we don't want to know. But this does not mean that he is creating a fascist state in Russia. And this does not mean that the military operation in East Europe is analogous to, let's say, Operation Barbarossa or something like that. I think that type of characterization is fueled by deep-seated hatred by the Western Europeans of a Russia which they believe are culturally inferior, but at the same time, just because of their luck, are endowed with material wealth that are really that they are not worthy of, and finally that they share a value and history that are not common to them. I think that's some of the deep-seated reasons. Anyway, apologize again for the audio here, and follow me on on Twitter, on Telegram, and also on my own chain critics, which, by the way, I will bring on Web3 very soon. Thanks for listening and have a great day.